Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. All right, SPTV late night edition, you guys. I have so many videos to do this coming week, combined with the fact that I basically taken 2 weeks off this month, that I'm, I'd rather get this video done a little late at night than let things continue to pile up. So the title of this video is Lawsuit Against David Miscavige Scheduled for Oral Arguments. Those oral arguments are going to be on March 3rd, but I'm actually going to begin this video by talking real quick about another lawsuit against David Miscavige that is scheduled for a hearing this coming Wednesday. Wait, this coming Wednesday? Yeah, that's the 25th. Okay, this coming Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. at the Stanley Mosque Courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. And that lawsuit is, I guess I'm going to call it the standalone lawsuit against David Miscavige, Gavin Potter, Bridge Publications, and two other entities. That's the standalone lawsuit because there's one plaintiff, and it's a Jane Doe, and it's the same Jane Doe as Jane Doe 1 in the Danny Masterson lawsuit, or the Danny Masterson criminal case. I want to explain this in a way that I've only really clearly understood it today, as far as where this lawsuit is, what Scientology is arguing, because this is pretty remarkable. This lawsuit, Jane Doe versus Gavin Potter, David Miscavige et al., it is essentially a child sex abuse lawsuit, okay? And due to various legislation, there is no statute of limitations that applies to this lawsuit, with one caveat: as long as it's a matter for which a dispute has not already previously been raised. Now, here's what's amazing. Scientology is trying to argue that this dispute has already been raised. And so they're basically trying to say that the look-back window doesn't apply to this lawsuit, and therefore the lawsuit is beyond its statute of limitations. I think former Scientologists will find it incredible how Scientology is arguing that this dispute has already been raised. The word dispute is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Jane Doe and her team is arguing the dispute was raised when we filed this lawsuit recently. Scientology is saying, what? That is not true. That is not true. This dispute was actually raised way back when this incident of sex abuse actually originally occurred. And Scientology's side of this is this. What actually happened is Jane Doe 1, who at the time was an underage Sea Org member working at middle management in Los Angeles, California, in the middle management building at least. She was working in a higher level organization. She was late for post one morning. And when asked why she was late for post, she answered by explaining that she was upset about something that had occurred the previous night, which was in fact what's the word? Because she was a minor, non-consensual, illegal sexual contact as a 17-year-old girl with a 27-year-old male Sea Org member. Keep in mind, Jane Doe did not go to the Scientology authorities to report this and demand justice. She wasn't even in a frame of mind to even understand that what had happened was illegal or a crime. The only reason this even came up is because she was asked why she was late for post. And in response to the question, explained what had occurred the previous night that she was upset about. And then in response to her explanation, she got in trouble. This is what Scientology is claiming was Jane Doe raising the dispute. It's unbelievable. She didn't raise anything. And anything that she volunteered in response to the question was not, legally speaking, raising a dispute. She was answering the question for why she was late for post, and then she got in trouble because in Scientology, if you are the victim of a crime, you are just as guilty for having had that crime occur to you as the perpetrator is for having committed the crime. This is what Scientology is trying to claim was the dispute being raised. So a number of depositions have been requested. Only one deposition has occurred on the subject of what does it mean to raise a dispute in Scientology? What is the process for raising a dispute? What is the process for resolving a dispute? And what are the details of how this dispute was raised and resolved with respect to Jane Doe and Gavin Potter? The first deposition that occurred on this subject was done with Church of Scientology International Corporate Secretary Lynn Farney. That's a man, by the way. The deposition went so horrifically for Lynn that he faked a medical emergency and cut the deposition short. Jane Doe's team has since then been trying to get Lynn Farney back for the deposition to continue the deposition, and Scientology's attorneys are claiming there's no reason for him to return. This is part of the reason for the hearing that is occurring this Wednesday morning, 8:30 a.m., Stanley Mosque Courthouse in the Jane Doe versus Gavin Potter, David Miscavige et al. Lawsuit. Not only are they trying to get Lynn Farney back to continue doing an amazing job of answering the questions, they are going to ask for Mike Ellis, the International Justice Chief, to be deposed. They're going to ask for Gavin Potter to be deposed. And they're going to ask for Jane Doe's mother to be deposed. The Jane Doe's mother is the one who signed Jane Doe over to the Sea Org and entered her into an arbitration agreement as a minor at the age of 16. Jane Doe one's mother has also filed a series of totally insane and crazy declarations in the case. So interfering in the case, involving herself in the case, by case, I mean lawsuit. And so they're trying to get her deposed. And this is all over the subject of Scientology claiming that this dispute has already been raised. Okay, let's see. On this one, no, that's it. That's it on that one. So if you're in the LA area and you want to see what's happening in this case, please go to Stanley Mosque Courthouse this Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. I wish I had the name of the judge in the courtroom in front of me, but unfortunately, I don't have it right in front of me. Good. Done with that. Let's go on to the lawsuit filed against David Miscavige, Danny Masterson, et al. By a number of Danny Masterson's victims, one of the victims, and one of the victims' husband. For essentially the harassment that these people have all been subjected to by Scientology since coming forward to the LAPD with their complaints about Danny Masterson. Here's where this lawsuit stands. First of all, these oral arguments, once again, set for March 3rd. It is scheduled to be available for streaming online, which is awesome. And this lawsuit was filed back in 2019, even before Danny Masterson. The decision was made by the district attorney in Los Angeles to try Danny Masterson. In fact, I believe it was partially because the lawsuit was filed that the district attorney was sort of humiliated and chose to prosecute, but could be wrong about that. So here's the short history of how we got to where we are today. This lawsuit originally was ordered by a judge to be sent to Scientology's internal religious arbitration, which is, of course, a total sham and a complete miscarriage of justice. The Jane Doe's legal team appealed. I'm just going to call it the Jane Doe's legal team because the majority of the plaintiffs are Danny Masterson's victims. They're not all Jane Doe's. So the Jane Doe's legal team appealed that decision. That decision was overturned by the appellate court, and the case was sent back to the courts. Okay, then the case was put on hold for the first Danny Masterson trial, the second Danny Masterson trial. Danny Masterson was convicted, sent to prison. The case was taken off of hold. And then Scientology tried to derail the case by filing an anti-SLAPP motion and having the whole lawsuit thrown out. Their anti-SLAPP motion was denied. Scientology then appealed that decision. They finally actually filed their appeal in April of 2025. In July 2025, the Jane Doe's attorneys filed their response to Scientology's appeal. Scientology then pounced because the response that was filed by Jane Doe's attorneys, it turns out, was littered with AI mistakes. reference citations to cases that never occurred, citations to decisions that were never made in cases that may or may not have ever occurred. It was a disaster. Okay. And so, the oral arguments that are going to be happening on March 3rd, they are primarily over the anti-SLAPP issue. The original judge that rejected Scientology's anti-SLAPP motion issued a very, very lengthy, detailed, and strong decision explaining that motion. And so what we're looking at on March 3rd is the oral arguments at the appellate court regarding the judge's rejection of the anti-SLAPP motion and Scientology's arguments for why they are appealing. The secondary issue that'll be taken up at this oral argument is what is the punishment going to be for the attorney and the law firm that submitted the Jane Doe's response to Scientology's appeal that was, by the law firm's own admission, riddled with mistakes because they used an AI tool to generate some of the citations and the content in the response. It really is embarrassing. There's whole YouTube channels dedicated to talking about this stuff that said this is one of the biggest and most embarrassing cases of being caught using AI in a legal brief and having it go wrong. And so there's a meaningful chance of significant financial sanctions against the law firm, but we will have to stay tuned to see what happens. I think it's pretty reasonable to expect the judge and the appellate court is not going to penalize the Jane Does for the fact that their lawyer made this mistake. Penalize their lawsuit, not penalize them individually. Okay. If the appellate court upholds the judge's decision and throws out Scientology's, reaffirms the judge's decision to reject Scientology's anti-SLAPP motion, we can reasonably expect Scientology to continue the appeal to the California Supreme Court. If it is not taken up there, we can expect Scientology to continue their appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, as they have already done previously in similar lawsuits. There's not much reason to expect either the California Supreme Court or the U.S. Supreme Court to take this up at all. But what it does accomplish is what Scientology is mostly trying to accomplish in these cases, which is to drag it on as long as possible, just buy time, and just keep kicking that can down the road until hopefully this judge retires, or hopefully this judge dies, or hopefully this partner leaves the case. Their number one strategy is to take as long as humanly possible every step of the way. So that's what's happening. Those are updates on 2 of the 5 lawsuits against David Miscavige. We won't try to comment on the other 3 right now. Just wanted to bring you those updates. All right, let's look at some starred comments and we'll wrap it up. And that'll be it from me for tonight. New year, new name. Bets on how many attorneys will be there to represent David Miscavige and RTC. Biggest I have seen just for RTC and David Miscavige was something like 13. That sounds about right. Ben Bacon Bits. Wow. To see the church raise a defense that makes the church look so bad shows everything is only to protect Dave and not the church. You just reminded me of something. Here's the thing. In the standalone case, Jane Doe versus Gavin Potter, David Miscavige, it's et al. Scientology isn't even denying that the child sex abuse occurred. They're not even denying it. They're just saying this dispute's already been raised in the past. And when you think about it, what they're really saying is a child informed us that she'd been the victim of child sex abuse. We investigated it. We determined it was okay. Therefore, you're not allowed to sue us. That is quite literally what they are saying. They're not even denying the complaint. It's unbelievable. All right. Suzanne and Bruce. I wonder if he has to show or if the lawyer will represent without the person present. Oh, David Miscavige definitely will not be in court. Night Sky Fire, good to see you. She is beyond amazing to continue this fight. Absolutely. New year, new name. And attorneys for David Miscavige and RTC will say that David Miscavige is too busy with ecclesiastical duties to know anything about the minutia of day-to-day workings. Yep, sounds about right. Ben says, boy, the little maggot, I mean, David Miscavige has to be getting a bit nervous. Yes. Adam Carmona, are they going to argue that Dave is not the head of the Sea Org, but is in fact a mild-mannered ventriloquist dummy? Okay. Colton Kissock. Does Scientology really have anything to lose by kicking out the Mastersons? It's not like they can tell anything that Leah Remini hasn't already told. Do they have anything to lose? I can think of a lot that they have to lose, actually. Yes. All right, everyone. That's it for me for this, and that is it for tonight. So much more to come tomorrow and the rest of next week. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right